Over 60? The hidden cacao coffee secret for brain and energy. Are you over 60 and feeling like your mind is not as sharp as it used to be? Maybe you walk into a room and forget why you went there, or you feel that afternoon energy crash that seems to last longer each day. Everyone talks about how cacao coffee can help rebuild your muscles after 60, but what if I told you its hidden power is actually in your brain, your circulation, and even your vitality? This is not just another superfood trend. As a nutritionist with over 15 years of experience helping people over 60 reclaim their energy and mental clarity, I've seen firsthand how one simple addition to your morning coffee can transform not just your physical strength, but your cognitive sharpness and overall zest for life. Here is what most people do not realize. While everyone focuses on sarcopenia, the muscle loss that happens as we age, there is another silent thief stealing your independence, declining brain circulation and cognitive function. Poor blood flow does not just affect your legs, it affects your memory, your decision-making, and your confidence in everyday situations. But here's the exciting part. The same compound that helps build muscle also crosses the blood-brain barrier and works like a natural circulation booster for your mind. And I am going to show you exactly how to use it safely and effectively. Plus, the one mistake that turns this powerful ally into just another sugary drink. Today, I'm sharing 3 key discoveries about cacao coffee that go far beyond muscle building. Number 2 is something that happens in your brain within just 30 minutes of drinking it. And number 3 addresses a concern many people my age have but rarely discuss openly. Each of these benefits builds on the others, creating a compound effect that can genuinely improve your quality of life. Let us start with something important. When you go to your doctor, they might mention sarcopenia, the muscle loss that happens with aging. They might even suggest protein supplements or resistance exercises. But how often do they talk about what is happening to your brain's blood vessels? Here's the reality. After age 60, blood flow to your brain can decrease by up to 15%. This is not just a number on a chart. This means less oxygen reaching the areas responsible for memory, decision-making, and processing speed. You might notice it as that tip of the tongue moment when you cannot remember a familiar name, or the frustration of reading the same paragraph twice because your mind wandered. But here is where it gets interesting. The same process that weakens your leg muscles, chronic low-grade inflammation, is also restricting blood flow throughout your body, including to your brain. Traditional coffee gives you a temporary energy boost, but pure cacao contains something much more powerful: flavonoids. Ruby, a 67-year-old teacher I worked with, told me she stopped volunteering at her local library because she was embarrassed about forgetting patrons' names. After 6 weeks of adding 1 teaspoon of pure cacao to her morning coffee, she returned to volunteering and even started leading book discussions again. The difference was not just physical energy, it was mental confidence. Before we dive in, I would love to know where you're watching from today. Drop your city and country in the comments below, and while you're there, check out the first pinned comment for your ebook with 5 coffee tricks and preparations that can change your quality of life. Now, before we go further, let us clear up a confusion that could make or break your results. When I say cacao coffee, I am talking about pure cacao powder, not the sweetened cocoa powder you find in the baking aisle. Here is the difference that matters for your health. Pure cacao is minimally processed raw cacao beans ground into powder. It retains high levels of flavonoids, particularly epicatechin and catechin, which are the compounds responsible for improved circulation. Regular cocoa powder has been heat-treated and often alkalized, which destroys up to 90% of these beneficial compounds. Think of it this way. If flavonoids are like tiny keys that unlock better blood flow, pure cacao gives you a full set of keys, while processed cocoa gives you maybe 1 or 2 that barely work. How to identify pure cacao? Look for labels that say raw cacao powder or organic cacao powder. The ingredient list should have exactly 1 item, cacao. It will taste more bitter than cocoa powder, which is actually a good sign. That bitterness comes from the very compounds that benefit your circulation. Practical application: start with half a teaspoon mixed into your regular coffee. The flavor is intense, so you might want to add a pinch of cinnamon or a splash of unsweetened almond milk. Work up to 1 full teaspoon over the course of a week. This is where things get fascinating, and it is something you can actually feel working. Within 30 minutes of drinking cacao coffee, those flavonoids begin increasing nitric oxide production in your blood vessels. Nitric oxide acts like a natural relaxation signal, helping your blood vessels open wider and allowing more blood to flow through. In a landmark study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, researchers gave older adults either flavonoid-rich cocoa or a placebo for 8 weeks. Those who received the real cocoa showed measurable improvements in blood flow to the brain, specifically to areas involved in memory and executive function. But here's what the study participants reported that caught my attention. They did not just perform better on cognitive tests. They felt more alert during conversations, more confident making decisions, and less frustrated with daily mental tasks. Real-world example. Think about the last time you were in a social situation and could not quite keep up with a fast-moving conversation, or you found yourself asking people to repeat things not because you could not hear, but because you needed extra time to process. Better brain circulation can help with exactly these situations. The science made simple. Your brain uses about 20% of your body's blood supply, even though it is only 2% of your body weight. When circulation improves, it is like upgrading from a garden hose to a fire hose in terms of delivering oxygen and nutrients to your brain cells. Imagine footage of a garden being watered with a sprinkler system versus targeted drip irrigation. Better circulation is like having that efficient targeted delivery system for your brain. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds too good to be true. I thought the same thing until I read about a remarkable 2-year study conducted with over 2,000 older adults. Half received flavonoid supplements equivalent to what you would get from high-quality cacao, while the other half received a placebo. The results were striking, but not in the way you might expect. The participants who started with the poorest diets showed the most dramatic improvements in memory tests and cognitive function. Those who already had excellent diets saw some benefits, but they were more modest. Here's what this tells us. If your diet is not perfect, and let us be honest, whose is? Cacao can help fill some important nutritional gaps. But more than that, it suggests that the antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties of cacao become more important as we face the accumulated effects of decades of less than perfect nutrition. I have worked with hundreds of people over 60, and very few have diets that provide optimal levels of flavonoids from food alone. Unless you are eating several servings of berries, dark leafy greens, and other antioxidant-rich foods every single day, you are likely not getting enough of these circulation-supporting compounds. The practical takeaway? Adding cacao to your coffee is not about perfection. It is about giving your body a simple daily boost of compounds that become increasingly important as we age. Let us talk about something many people my age experience but do not always feel comfortable discussing openly. Along with mental clarity and circulation, many people notice improvements in overall vitality and energy, including aspects of intimate health. This makes perfect sense when you understand the mechanism. The same nitric oxide production that improves blood flow to your brain also enhances circulation throughout your entire body. Better circulation means more efficient delivery of oxygen and nutrients to all your tissues, which can translate into improved energy levels and, yes, enhanced intimate function. Lars, a 72-year-old client, initially came to me concerned about fatigue and low motivation. After 8 weeks of incorporating cacao coffee into his routine, along with other circulation-supporting habits, he reported not just more energy for daily activities, but a renewed sense of vitality that positively affected his relationship with his wife. I want to be clear that cacao is not a magic solution for serious health issues, but for many people, poor circulation is an overlooked factor in decreased energy and vitality. When you address circulation naturally and safely, you often see improvements in multiple areas of life. The connection. Your cardiovascular system does not work in isolation. When you support healthy circulation for your brain, you're supporting healthy circulation everywhere. The confidence that comes from feeling mentally sharp often translates into feeling more energetic and engaged in all aspects of life. Here is another piece of the puzzle that ties everything together. Chronic low-grade inflammation is like a slow fire, burning throughout your body as you age. It contributes to muscle loss, joint stiffness, cognitive decline, and reduced circulation. Cacao is rich in compounds that help control this inflammation. In fact, studies show that regular consumption of high flavonoid cacao can reduce inflammatory markers in the blood by up to 40% over just a few weeks. What this means for daily life? Less inflammation does not just mean better test results. It means waking up with less stiffness, thinking more clearly throughout the day, and having more consistent energy levels. It is the difference between feeling like you're fighting your body versus working with it. Inez's story. A 65-year-old former nurse told me she had been taking over-the-counter anti-inflammatory medication almost daily for joint discomfort. After 3 months of cacao coffee plus some gentle movement, she was able to reduce her medication use significantly and reported feeling more like her younger self. Now let us get practical. The most effective way I have found to incorporate cacao into your routine is through your morning coffee ritual. This timing works because the combination of coffee's caffeine and cacao's flavonoids creates a sustained energy boost without the crash that comes from coffee alone. Basic recipe: 8 ounces of your regular coffee, 1 teaspoon pure cacao powder, and optionally 1/4 teaspoon cinnamon or 1 tablespoon unsweetened almond or oat milk. Preparation tips: add the cacao powder to a small amount of hot coffee first and whisk until smooth. This prevents clumps. Then add the rest of your coffee and any optional ingredients. Flavor adaptation: if you find pure cacao too bitter initially, start with half a teaspoon and gradually increase. The cinnamon not only improves flavor, but adds its own circulation benefits. Avoid adding sugar or artificial sweeteners, as these can interfere with the flavonoid absorption. Timing consideration: have your cacao coffee with breakfast or shortly after. The small amount of food helps with absorption and reduces any chance of stomach irritation. Before you rush to try this, let us talk about who should be cautious and how to approach this safely. Caffeine sensitivity. If you are sensitive to caffeine, start with decaffeinated coffee or reduce your regular coffee intake when adding cacao. Cacao contains small amounts of caffeine and theobromine, a related compound that can increase the stimulating effects. Medication interactions. If you are taking blood thinners, blood pressure medications, or any medications for heart conditions, talk with your healthcare provider before adding concentrated amounts of cacao to your diet. While the amounts we are discussing are generally safe, it is always better to check. Digestive considerations. Some people experience mild stomach upset when first introducing cacao, especially on an empty stomach. This is why I recommend having it with breakfast rather than first thing in the morning. Quality matters. This is not the place to buy the cheapest option. Look for organic, fair trade cacao powder from reputable suppliers. Poor quality cacao might be contaminated with heavy metals or processed in ways that destroy the beneficial compounds. Let us set realistic expectations. This is not an overnight transformation, but many people do notice subtle changes within the first week. Week 1. You might notice more sustained energy from your morning coffee without the afternoon crash. Some people report feeling more alert during morning activities. Weeks 2 to 4. This is when people often notice improvements in mental clarity and memory. You might find yourself more engaged in conversations or feeling more confident about remembering names and details. Weeks 4 to 8. The circulation and inflammation benefits tend to become more apparent during this time frame. You might notice less morning stiffness, more consistent energy throughout the day, and improvements in overall vitality. Long-term benefits. The cardiovascular and cognitive protective effects continue to build over months and years of consistent use. Think of this as an investment in your future self. While cacao coffee is a fantastic starting point, let me share a few additional ways to maximize these circulation and brain health benefits. Movement matters. Even 10 minutes of walking after your cacao coffee can enhance the circulation benefits. The combination of flavonoids and gentle movement is particularly powerful. Hydration support. Cacao coffee counts toward your fluid intake, but make sure you are drinking plenty of water throughout the day. Good hydration supports the circulation improvements you are working toward. Sleep connection. Interestingly, people who regularly consume flavonoid-rich foods often report better sleep quality. Better sleep supports everything else we have talked about, creating a positive cycle of health improvements. Social benefits. Consider sharing this ritual with a spouse, friend, or family member. Having someone to share new health habits with increases the likelihood you will stick with them long term. Let me address a few questions I hear regularly about this approach. Is this just another expensive supplement trend? Pure cacao powder typically costs less than many supplements and provides multiple benefits in one ingredient. A month's supply of high-quality cacao powder usually costs less than a week of specialty coffee drinks. Will this interfere with my medications? The amounts we are discussing are equivalent to eating a small piece of very dark chocolate daily. However, if you are on multiple medications or have specific health conditions, it is always wise to mention dietary changes to your healthcare provider. What if I do not like coffee? You can add cacao powder to warm milk, herbal tea, or even blend it into a morning smoothie. The key is having it regularly and with something that aids absorption. Here is what excites me most about sharing this information with you. We often think about aging as a series of things we have to give up or accept. But what if instead of just accepting cognitive decline, reduced energy, and circulation problems as inevitable, we approached them as challenges we can address? Adding cacao to your coffee is a small change, but it represents a larger philosophy, that we can age actively and intentionally. Every choice you make either supports your vitality or undermines it. This is one simple choice that supports multiple aspects of health simultaneously. Elodie's transformation. Let me share one more story that illustrates this beautifully. Elodie, a 71-year-old grandmother, came to me feeling frustrated that she could not keep up with her grandchildren during visits. She was experiencing what she described as brain fog and felt like she was always one step behind in conversations. After implementing cacao coffee along with a few other circulation supporting strategies, she reported that her last visit with her grandchildren was completely different. She played board games without losing track of the rules, helped with homework without feeling overwhelmed, and most importantly, felt present and engaged rather than struggling to keep up. That is the real goal here. Not just better test results or impressive health metrics, but feeling like yourself again. Feeling confident in your mental abilities, energetic enough to engage in the activities you enjoy, and vital enough to embrace new experiences. Let us recap what we have covered today, because these 3 key points can genuinely change how you experience aging. First, cacao coffee is not just about muscle building. It is about brain circulation, delivering more oxygen and nutrients to the areas responsible for memory, decision-making, and mental clarity. Within 30 minutes of drinking it, you are supporting better blood flow to your brain. Second, the anti-inflammatory effects of cacao work throughout your entire body, potentially reducing the chronic low-grade inflammation that contributes to fatigue, joint stiffness, and cognitive decline. This is not about dramatic overnight changes. It is about feeling more like yourself consistently. Third, better circulation supports overall vitality and energy, including aspects of intimate health that many people experience but do not always discuss. When you support healthy blood flow, you often see improvements in multiple areas of life. The key is consistency and quality. 1 teaspoon of pure cacao powder in your morning coffee, most days of the week, can be a simple but powerful investment in your cognitive health, circulation, and overall vitality. Remember, this is not about perfection or completely overhauling your routine. It is about adding one evidence-based, affordable, and enjoyable habit that supports multiple aspects of healthy aging. I'm curious to hear from you. Are you already drinking coffee in the morning? And if so, what is the one thing that would make you most excited about trying this addition? Is it the potential for better mental clarity, more consistent energy, or perhaps that renewed sense of vitality we discussed? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment and love hearing about your experiences with natural approaches to healthy aging. Remember, if you want, I will make available our complete guide for seniors on supplements and health products that can change your quality of life. Link in the first comment with a limited time offer. Until then, here is to feeling sharp, energetic, and vital at every age. Tomorrow, when you sip your coffee, think about what you are really fueling. Not just your body, but your brain, your circulation, and your confidence in living life fully.